Welcome back to the WTF1 Fantasy Show. We're going to be discussing today the build-up to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. I'm joined by the usual, unfortunately. I'm joined by Amber Jones here.
Unfortunate. What change of tune?
I'm a little bit salty because she is currently ahead of me in the Fantasy League. And we are joined by another guest. You might not recognize his face, but you will recognize his voice. It is Luke, who is the racing pilot. Welcome aboard to the Fantasy Show. How are you?
I'm good. First off of the first race of the season. I'd say I'm excited for the rest of the year, but I don't really know if I am.
I mean, you're doing actually really well in our Celebrity Fantasy League. You're currently second.
He's
not quite
already.
number one, but you are getting closer to that golden helmet. You're doing a lot better than we are.
Yeah.
Give us some tips. How did you manage it?
Experience.
Experience.
Go with experience. Experienced drivers, not my experience. Okay. Experienced drivers and a lot of luck.
So quickly before we get on to Saudi, let's talk a little bit about Bahrain. And I want to know, because we knew what our teams were from last week's podcast, who was in your team? What got you those 913 points to put you in second? And I mean, in our overall league, you're pretty much up there as well, aren't you?
42nd.
42nd?
Jeez,
Yeah,
mine was about 261 or something like that.
I mean, shout out to John, Oscar, and to Jack, 97954299. I hope that's not some sort of like national insurance number they got from the league. But they are currently top of the WTF1 Fantasy League. So well done to both of you. 959 points. So very strong start, but there's still 23 races left to go. But yeah, who was on your team?
Yeah, I don't think I'll relive that weekend again this year, sadly. But I had Danny Rick as my star driver as well.
Okay, we shared that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, that's one.
The rest is all downhill for me, but clearly.
Yeah. Lewis Hamilton, Carlos,
okay,
big points.
Yeah.
Fernando.
Yeah.
K-Mag, who surprisingly got a lot, and a lot of
I think he gained a lot of positions, didn't he?
Yeah.
Him and Joe did really well on the overtakes.
They've gone up, and Haas have gone up in the constructors' points as well. So
and earned some money as well.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
Which I've sadly lost now, but we'll get on to that. And then I had Mercedes as my team.
There's another thing to consider as well that we didn't get into on last week's podcast, which is, of course, the contract system.
Yeah.
Now, you can pick a driver or a team for up to 5 races. You can, if you just want to throw them in for one race, which could have been smart at the start of the season, throw all your drivers in for one race at the start of the season and then sort of assess where everybody is. You're freeing yourself up, but then you can't really pick those drivers again. So say, I went for Max Verstappen and Red Bull for one race, 1 week contract. I wouldn't then be able to pick them after that.
Yeah.
So it's wise sometimes to go for those one races. If, for example, 2 drivers that haven't done well for me and have gone down in money, Logan Sargent and Albon, despite repping the Williams jumper today, Williams have not done well for me. So it would have been wise to put them on a 1. I'd put everybody on a 3. Apart from Max and Red Bull, I put on a 5. Because as you, on your point, they were dominating last season. A team who's dominating don't drop to the back of the field. Yeah. They were still going to be up there and fighting. And I think it will work out for me over the 5 races that they will be very strong.
I personally, now looking at what works strategy-wise, I wouldn't go for Williams. And I've actually swapped out a Williams, which we'll get into later. But now I've seen with the Mercedes power unit, and there's going to be overheating issues at Saudi as well. I don't think it's wise. If Sargent's already dropped, and Albon probably won't do too well if we do see any of those issues come in, I don't think it's wise to have them on your team.
I also feel that you can make a lot of points and a lot of extra cash from the lower drivers.
That's what I was going
that are
for.
beating teammates.
That's
I find
what I was
Williams
going
almost
for.
too expensive.
I was going for Logan Sargent because I expected him to qualify at the back, and I think he qualified at the top end of Q1, I'm pretty sure. So it wasn't quite at the back, but then fell to last. I think Albon made it through to Q2, but didn't make it through to Q3, but didn't really gain any positions either. So for both of them, they struggled for me in that sense. So the main reason I put them in the team was because they just didn't do that. Yeah.
That's why you need to go for Haas. Yeah. You need to go for Haas because they're the team that's at the back but improving the most.
Alpine now, that's the one to pick. Alpine's the one you want to go for last. At the moment, but they are going to slowly come down. So a team to think about. I think Haas is a good one if you pick them and you've got them on 3, 4, 5 races. Yeah. I think you're going to be really strong. Another good pick for me, Joe.
Yes.
I backed him, my boy, and he had a solid performance.
Very solid.
I may have snatched him up in my team.
So let's talk about transfers then. So you're alluding to it, transfers. I actually haven't made any because as I said, I've got people on 3 race contracts and then Max and Red Bull on 5, and I don't want to pay. I've only got 1.2 million. I don't want to pay that to get rid of them just yet because we're only 1 race in. But you've already made a transfer.
I have.
You've already made a transfer. Let's start off with you, Amber. Who have you brought out? Who have you put in? And what does it cost you?
So I have took out Alex Albon and I replaced him with Zhou. So Alex was about 13 mil or something like that, 13.4.
Yep.
So I thought he's already expensive and he actually didn't do great for me. He didn't bring me a lot of points. So I was like, right, Zhou did fantastic. I'm going to move him in because I feel like he might have a repeat at Saudi. And then I swapped Magnussen for Hülkenberg.
Okay.
So I put Magnussen on a 1 contract. I wanted to keep him, but I couldn't. He was locked. I couldn't pick him and I didn't actually have a lot of money left. So me picking Hülkenberg wasn't really my choice. It was kind of the best out of the last bunch that I had. But I wasn't going to pick Sargent. And I think that was the only... Sargent and Hülkenberg were the only 2 I actually could afford. So I thought that's the correct decision.
A good shout because his quali pace is unreal.
Exactly.
He was so good.
And I mean, he had that collision at the start. It was his fault. But I think it's hard to kind of judge what he can do in that car. But then over the last season, it was always Hülkenberg that would out-qualify Magnussen, but they'd always be close together where they finished. So he would lose positions and Magnussen would gain them. So I actually feel like you've gone in the wrong direction. But
No.
But you may prove me wrong. You're ahead of me in the standings at the moment. So what do I know?
Exactly.
What
Don't
do I
listen to
know?
Haydon. I was thinking also about getting rid of Bottas, but then I thought, no, because it wasn't his fault they had a bad race.
You've got double Sauber
Yeah.
for this week.
I have.
Interesting.
I've gone for a double kick
Let's hope
Sauber.
that they
I know.
do well.
I think they will, because if Bottas didn't have that incident, he would have actually been in some nice positions for the race, and that's why I'm going to hope for that for this race.
Speaking of Bottas, somebody's got Bottas in their team.
Oh.
Here. So talk to me
I
about
do.
your transfers for this week, head of
So I
Saudi.
made 1 transfer. I got rid of Magnussen and put Bottas in.
Was he like one of your highest scorers as well, Magnussen?
Well, but my thinking was he made me a lot of money. So he made me 2 million.
Yeah.
So I had him on a 3-race contract. I kind of just saw it as he's made me 2. Let's hedge your bets, take the money and run, basically. My lack of thinking in that decision was I thought I'd then be able to buy someone more expensive, which wasn't the case. So I've gone for Bottas because he was the next best. But I think, as you said, there was potential in that race to score good points, and he's very cheap. He lost a lot of value last race, so I think it's only on the way up.
Yeah, I mean, both your picks, Hülkenberg and Bottas, 2 drivers that maybe couldn't really show their full potential. Bottas was an outside factor. Hülkenberg was kind of his own doing, but he had a really good recovery drive, and I think the pace is definitely there, and I'm really excited to see how those 2 do over the course of the next race in Saudi.
Well, it's all about strategy, though, with GridRival. So, a little reminder that if you want to get in those points, there's 6 different ways that you can get those points, which are race position, qualifying points, overtaking points, improvement points, and beating a teammate points. So, taking that into account, I thought, okay, race position, Max Verstappen. Qualifying position, someone in the top 5 you want, really, to get those points. Overtaking points, who's going to overtake each other? Ferraris, the McLarens, the Astons. Also, improvement points, that's why you go with your bottom end. And then beating a teammate points, you'd always go for the strongest teammate. So I think that's the best, basic, simple way of picking your team, is going through that and think, okay, who qualifies for each of those points?
Okay then, before we wrap it up, let's talk about our star drivers, because this is another big part of the fantasy, is that you need to have a star driver in your team, and they're going to get you double points. Sadly, they don't let you for one of the really top drivers, so Max Verstappen, they're not giving me double points on that. I went with Daniel Ricciardo last time, and I'm currently unsure. I don't think I'm going to pick a Williams because they're struggling with those overheating issues. I'm kind of thinking between Zhou after that really strong race, because I thought RB were going to be stronger going into Bahrain, and sadly they weren't. And I do think that Yuki Tsunoda had a better race than Ricciardo. Despite them getting switched, Yuki just got screwed by his strategy. So there's the potential again for Yuki to better his teammates. So I think I might change mine from Ricciardo to Joe, because if I'd done it last week, I would have scored quite a lot of points compared to what I did get.
Hindsight is brilliant.
Hindsight is a beautiful thing.
It's.
You know?
I think going off hindsight is always tricky because you'll always be left wanting more and always thinking you've made the wrong decisions.
Yeah.
I find.
But what would you do in that situation? So, like, tell me who I should go with then.
I stick to your guns.
Stick with Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah.
But are you saying that because you actually think I am going to get more points with Joe, and you don't want me to come and catch you up?
Maybe. But
I'm
I'm going
curious.
Ricciardo, so that's
Okay.
a good sign.
Oh, sorry. Okay, just Mr. Second in the Celebrity League. It's a good sign. We need to get Olivia on. She can show us how it's actually done. Olivia is currently number 1, by the way, in the Fantasy League. Who's your star driver then for this week? You stick with
Danny
Daniel
Rick.
Ricciardo.
Danny Rick.
Okay.
Amber?
I actually went with your boy, Joe.
Joe.
I did.
See, this doesn't help me
Now
because I'm
that's a dilemma.
split between the two.
Exactly. No, I just thought it was a wise move out of mine because I can only pick between Bottas, Joe, and Hulkenberg. I thought, who's going to get me the most points? So I stuck with Joe. I thought he had great pace. He did really impress me in that race. So that's why I thought, bring that to Saudi. Hopefully get some more points and carry on beating you.
I don't like that.
Maybe not Luke.
I don't
I'll
like
get
that.
there.
I will catch you up at some point.
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah.
Don't you worry. He's got a one race fluke. He
all the
won't know what he's
contracts, though.
doing
It's how you do
for the
contracts.
rest of
That's the thing
series.
though, because if you then swap your driver that you've contracted them for 3 races, you then have to pay a fee.
Yeah.
And it was sad to see that money go down. However, so a tip for you, if you do want to get out of that contract, wait until practice. Wait until the cars go out on track, because if you do it beforehand, you actually pay more.
Oh, really?
So there's a tip for you.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. So
Yeah.
basically, both of you are very,
In
very
hindsight,
stupid
that
for
would
not
be good
to
doing
know.
that.
I know.
before
I
practice.
only learnt this recently and I thought, oh, great. It's
Hayden's
early release
team
fee.
might change before the
Oh,
next race.
no.
We'll
Why
have
did
to
I
wait and
give
see.
you that point?
No, I think I'm still very confident of
Okay.
riding this out for the next 3 races and
So
seeing
you guys
how
are
it goes.
keeping Max.
I'm keeping
Yes,
Max. I mean,
I
come on
am.
now. He's going to win the race.
It's consistent
Is Max
points.
Verstappen not going to win
But
the
I
race?
think the Bahrain track did make them look more dominant than they actually are. They are very dominant, but
I mean, Saudi, yes, okay, it's a different track to Bahrain. It's there's a lot more fast-flowing corners. Okay, it's not that new Saudi track that's been shown. There's not a massive ramp going down into turn 1 that you can shoot off into the stars from. Yeah, okay, there's differences, but it's still majority, to be fair, straight line speed is a big key factor.
I still think they're going to dominate, and then I also think it's going to be good for the McLarens and the Ferraris, hopefully. And I've got a Ferrari, I'm Ferrari constructors, and I've got a McLaren in my team. So Max, obviously Red Bull, McLaren, and a Ferrari. I think I'm onto a win. So move out the way, Luke.
I'll be interested to see what McLaren do.
I'm quite
they're
hopeful.
A bit random at the
I
moment.
hope they have a stinker because I haven't got any of them
Yeah,
in my
neither.
team.
I'm
So
quite hopeful.
Ferrari,
I'm optimistic
big
that they're
stinkers.
going to do
I
well.
want Carlos. Carlos will do well, though. Carlos is on it.
And there we go. What are your predictions for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix? Let us know. And if you want to join the Fantasy League, you are still able to join. You will be a little bit further behind everybody else, but there's still 23 races to go, and I'm sure you can definitely catch us all up. We'll see you next week. Thank you very much, Luke, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Amber. And we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
If you think you can beat me, make sure to download the GridRival app and join the WTF1 League.